Well, welcome everyone. I am Lisa Garrow and I am the founder of Candy Event Consulting. If you haven't met me before, and I want to introduce you to Susan McGuire. I'm so glad we have the chance to have this conversation today, but we'll unpack a little bit why you're here today. But welcome, glad you're here.
Thank you, me too.
And you and I have known each other for a little while, and I know you in the capacity as a pretty amazing coach and somebody that is there to mentor others and support others. And when I was thinking about what is called the planners pop in, so this little concept, I'll tell people where it came from before. But when I was thinking about our first in this series, I wanted to talk about people. I wanted to talk about how we are managing ourselves in the context of a team or in the context
Mm,
of the people that we work with to plan this event or events or
mm,
promotion. And then how do we actually empower those around us to really give us that space or give them ourselves that space to show up authentically, but give them that space to feel
mm,
safe, to feel like they've got this, to feel that they
mm.
have the tools that they need. So I was really, really thrilled that you said yes, that you are going to be our special guest for the very first one. This is going to be on August the 30th. And for those of you that don't know anything about the Planners Pop In, this started during COVID when everything shut down, which we don't want to think about that too much, but we moved online and I started to do a morning pop in where it was really a chance for people to, from all over the place, to pop in with us on Zoom, have a conversation about have a conversation about what planning means and how do we actually start to lean into the community to get different perspectives and different ideas for our planning. And it really allows us to expand how we plan. So I'm really glad that we have the probably the most important topic as our first topic, Susan. But I'm really excited to have this conversation with you around what is important. So we're not going to say everything about everything today, but I'm thinking that in your world, I know you as a people whisperer. In your world, there's so many things that you're seeing among teams that I think is
Mhm.
going to help us as planners to be able to look more closely at how our team dynamics are affecting the events that we plan. So
Mhm.
what are you seeing today right now with different teams and how are they showing up and where are you finding there's some gaps?
Mm. Well, Lisa, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait for the event on the 30th. I do agree that the topic of people is so critical and foundational to be able to create the events and the moments that we want to create. So, what I'm seeing around individuals and teams is, you touched on it, is I would say our lack of awareness around how we as individuals are showing up, and more importantly, why we're showing up that way. It's never bad. How we are is how we are because of what we've come through in our lives and all of the amazing lessons and all of the experiences that we've had. And we know that they've formed who we are.
Mhm.
That we understand. The question is, how is it that it comes through in our behavior? And so, how are we showing up for those around us? And our teams are critical around that. So, if we can understand what we're motivated by, and then we can turn our attention to what our teams or individuals in our teams, more importantly, are motivated by, then we can choose how to respond in that moment.
Mhm.
So, if I may, for example, if we're thinking about how we are trying to provide a product or a service, and I am very much driven by the deadline that we have. That's obviously very critical. And my colleague is talking about how they are feeling very passionate about an element of the customer experience. So, one of those attendees, perhaps, and what is important to them. And so we can see right away that there might be a clash in that moment about how we are observing each one of us coming to that conversation and saying, well, I'm not sure I feel heard in this moment because they consider that to be a priority, whereas I consider this to be a priority. And
Mhm.
so, if as that leader or that event planner, we can recognize in that moment that both of these things are very good motivations. And how is it that I will stop and take a moment and recognize that I understand that this person is wanting to have a people-centered approach in that moment.
Mhm.
And so do I. That's also important to me. The client experience is important to me. So what I might say in that moment is I would say, I hear you. I hear that that client experience is really important to you. I also agree that it's really important. We have a deadline that we need to meet. How can we maybe achieve both of these things at the same time?
Mm. And when there is a breakthrough, I would guess, when that happens, what happens to the team dynamic when that's actually happening?
Mm. And we can appreciate that I, as the person on the team, feel heard, that I feel understood, that I feel appreciated for my thought, that it's contributing something,
Mm.
that I'm not being responded to in a way that feels that what I think is not important.
Right.
And so I'm also able to participate in the solution in that way. And
Mm.
so I think what's happening in that moment is that I'm feeling engaged, I'm feeling empowered, I'm feeling charged
Yeah.
rather than disengaged, rather than stepping back. I'm stepping forward and I'm wanting to be a part of the team. I'm wanting to continue to be a part of the solution.
And isn't that the idea, right? The idea of actually wanting to hang on, wanting to contribute, wanting to be there. And I talk about events being connection points over time, and that there's many connection points in the life of
Mhm.
a business or an organization or a group. But if we're not looking at it as I want this team to continue, or I want this team to grow, or I want us to
Mhm.
readjust and understand our roles better and to be better connected over time. Not only does it make it easier to plan and easier to understand where we're all working, but I think it does help us retain great talent and great passion and
Mhm.
great events, excuse me, great events that become um, almost like a signature type of event, or we start to leave this trail of great connections over time. And so many times I hear clients where they might be talking about an event almost like a one hit wonder, where we're
Mhm.
just all running towards the finish line and we're giving it, and we've cut out everything in our life to make this one goal happen.
Mhm.
And then they all fall over the finish line, not all, fall over the finish line, exhausted, feeling good maybe about the event, but not really keen to continue on. And
Mhm.
maybe there have been some knocking of heads, or some different perspectives that have maybe rubbed the wrong way, that they're just not going to sign up again, or they're
Mhm.
just needing to take a month off, or just not
Right.
even talking about that experience. And I think that we can do
Mhm.
this differently. I'm a firm
Mhm.
believer that if we pay attention to it, our teams can be, and like you're saying, energizing, open, ready to go, and also feeling heard and seen, and that they have
Yes.
that contribution.
Yes. Yes.
When you think about high level, high functioning teams, many times, and some of these teams have been together a very long time. And when we talk about events, we actually talk about teams as being our in house team, maybe our volunteer committee. They
Mhm.
might be partners as well as sponsors, or it might be vendors that we've worked with a long time, and they haven't some input in our events. What do you see when we're trying to actually grow or get that extra edge as a team? What are some of those things that you think will really make a difference for them to be able to function at even a greater, more, I think, connected level?
Mhm. Mhm. The word that's coming up for me, Lisa, is excel.
Mhm.
And so in our coaching approach, we are looking for individuals to not just meet that one objective that they have in that moment
Yeah.
or at that season in their life, but we're wanting them to see an opportunity in multiple areas, perhaps. And that's what we call accelerating.
Okay.
And so that's what comes up for me when I hear you talking about this. And so it's, how do you accelerate the event planning team so that they have the energy and the drive and the passion to continue beyond the one event.
Yeah.
And I think what comes to me is some sense of stability, some sense of continuity,
Mhm.
consistency. And so for me, what that translates into is really having that foundation of self and really being able to step into knowing who I am.
Mhm.
So for example, and we are all, we all have the same traits, but to varying degrees.
Mm.
And so when I talked earlier about my drive, for example, for results, and my team members' drive for a people-centered approach in that moment, we could also have somebody on the team who's very data oriented,
Mhm.
which we know how critical that is, the analytics, the trends, the marketplace, what is it that is in demand. So we can imagine that all of these three things are very critical to any successful team. And you and I have talked before about those candy moments, right? The
Yeah.
perfect fit, when everything is
Yeah.
jiving, everybody is feeling as though their team feels needed, that their individual skills are needed, and that they're being met with their natural talents and their passions. And so I think it's the team leader to discover that for themselves, and then also to discover that in their team so that they can then create what it means for them with their own brand, with their own passion, with their own style. And it doesn't feel like burnout. It doesn't feel like exhaustion, because they're tying their natural abilities to it.
Yeah. I love that. I think that there's, isn't it amazing how when we think about excelling, and I've done this work myself, but when we think of excelling and knocking something out of the park and really getting to a really high level of functioning as a business or in our events, how it actually is more so about kind of bringing ourselves back to the purpose and the core and to being more of ourselves within the team for us to excel at that level. That's such a beautiful example, and as somebody that I'm sure you're seeing this in lots of different industries and contexts, that we need to remember, because it's not about having more or hiring, another three people on the team or necessarily having more money. It's really about doing that hard and maybe sometimes slower work at the same time as moving fast because we've got deadlines to meet, but understanding that that's where that connection over time is going to happen and that we can excel from that too. That's beautiful.
Yes.
What I'm excited about, so again, any candy workshop is an incredible cross section of different people planning in different ways. Might be entrepreneurs, might be business owners, might be admin pros, might be just someone in the community that is running some kind of community event. But the common denominator is that they want to run great events. So on August the 30th, we're going to be talking about events, and our topic is people. And for those of you that want to come, this is a free series. We're going to be at cSPACE. So if you're local to Calgary, this is going to be for you, because it's going to have the opportunity for you to meet a bunch of people in a room that are your, I call them planning peers, and then also hear from Susan. Really, what does it mean for us as planning teams to excel, to find ourselves in the middle of what can feel messy or can feel really complex, how we can actually find ourselves and actually lead and participate as a team member in a more authentic way. Any little tips that we could leave with the people that are watching today that they could maybe take into their team while they're waiting to join us on the 30th? Any little,
Mm.
I know what I wanted to do is quickly share, actually, you had written a great article
Mm.
in our Moments magazine. This was the climb issue, and it was at a really difficult time for a lot of planners where we were trying to climb out of what did it mean
Yes.
to plan events anymore. And a lot of people were getting out of what it meant to be event planning because they said, I didn't sign up for this. This
Mhm.
is not what I want. But when
Yes.
we're talking here in your article, or you had submitted this as your next level planning team, and I am so excited that this could be something that we can share on the 30th as well. I will put the link below so you can find Susan's article and read the whole thing. But what would we leave? What could we leave with those that are
Mhm.
listening today that they could take into their week?
What I think could be something is to start listening to how you're talking.
Ah,
So, what are the words that I'm using? What
right.
is it
Yeah.
that is important to me? What do I emphasize? What do I make a
Mhm.
point of? And therefore, what is it that you're hearing others make a point of? And what are they talking about? What are they bringing to the conversation? And really be honing in on that as a motivation. There's hints. We're given hints by people around us because of the words that they use, and that is their motivation coming through in their communication or their behavior.
Yeah.
So that's what I would leave you with, is try to listen to what
Mhm.
it is that you're saying and what is it that your colleagues are saying.
I love that. And I love writing things down, and not to be in a strange way or a stalkerish way. But my mom was always really brilliant. She kept a notebook beside her phone back in the day when you were tethered to a wall.
Yes.
But on that, whenever she'd have a conversation with somebody, she'd just write some notes while she's talking. And as a kid, I remember her attentively listening, finding what it was that, how they were speaking, but then also what were those things that were really important to them, so that when she would call
Mm.
back or they'd call her back, she just had this record of things in her life that, people in her life that mattered, and that she wanted to make sure she was retaining that information. And I love what you're saying is, as we're doing that kind of exercise, it's not hard. And now we have all sorts of gadgets and things that can record things for us. But wouldn't that be amazing to see over time how we're actually digging a little bit and doing that deep dive with our team, and to understand what matters to them through the words that they're saying? That's such a beautiful, I think, doable tip.
Well, what a great example, too. I love that about your mom.
So thank you so much for this conversation. I am
My
really
pleasure.
excited again about starting this series. The fact that it's free, it's going to be at
Yes.
cSPACE, which is in Marda Loop. If you haven't been there, it's a beautiful building. So show up a bit early, and we'll have more of this conversation then. Thank you again, Susan.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thanks, Lisa, and we'll see you on the 30th.